Welcome to Whispers. The Fox and Cock. The Fox and the Cock in contemporary Nigeria. The story of how the fox lost its fright of the cock, or how the cock foolishly made itself the fox's delicious meal, was one of the tales by the monarchs that must have been told at millions of Yoruba households in those days. Grandma told me and the other children growing up under a tutelage the fox and the cock story. Playing football and running around during the day and knowledge sharing in the evening. It was where we learnt critical thinking through Yoruba stories and proverbs. Without knowing it, as children, we were learning Yoruba philosophy and world outlook in a play mode. Out of interest, and older men shared different stories. His stories were more exciting because we participated as chorus to sing songs that accompanied the narratives. At the end of each story, he asked all the children what lessons could be learned. I learned about the fox and the cock during one of these knowledge sessions. I can't say whether these days children still gather in the evening before going to bed to listen to folk tales from the old ones. The cock and the fox, and the story itself didactic. The old school as well as the digital age Yoruba sons and daughters have a lot to learn from this story. The fox used to be faithful. It used to be fearful and constantly running away from the cock. One day, the cock asked the fox to stop running away. The fox responded that it had to run because of the fire on the cock's head. The cock was shocked and asked where was the fire. The fox pointed at the beautiful flowery comb obey adorning the head of the cock like a crown, and stated that the cock carried fire on its head. The cock invited the fox to come closer, that it's just a comb and not fire, and that it is only meant to attract hens. Hesitatingly, the fox came closer and touched the comb and discovered the truth. Upon the discovery that the cock had no fire, the fox grabbed the cock, killed it, and ate it. A Shakamo-based retired engineer friend of mine wanted to reinvent himself by becoming a farmer. He wanted to provide progressive political leadership to Southwest farmers to make them produce more food. He invested a lot in farming in newer parts of Yoruba land to produce plantains. He got to his farm one day and found cows eating up his freshly growing plantain suckers. He shouted. A Bororo herdsman asked him why he was shouting and disturbing the feeding cows. He told me he meekly left as he was worried that the herdsman could burn the nearest village with no recourse to law enforcement if he had stood to defend his interests on his farmland. He decided to stop farming. Many farmers in the Southwest growing maize, beans, and other crops have similar stories to tell. The timid governors in Yoruba State, like scared foxes, were of no help to the people. They all want to be president, vice president, or at least ministers, and are ready to compromise the real interests of their people. The governors have a feeble adversary relationship with the police. The police structure is under the control of cow-loving, cow-owning President Muhammadu Buhari. The more powerful South did not realize its power as the folks in Nigeria, but was afraid of the core North, thinking its flowery cocoa was fire, until a Sunday Igbo went after the Siriki Fulani of Ikoko, and the OPC went after Iskilu Wakil. Both had allegedly been terrorizing and destroying lives and farmlands in the southwest, while the police waited for instructions that apparently never came from Abuja. Actually, Fox's southern Nigeria has more unrealized power. The foreign exchange earning black gold is in the south. The south is not landlocked. It also has horrible farmlands. It has more forests and lush greens, and lesser dry and desert land. It has seaports. It is more open to investment. Dangote started its petroleum refinery and petrochemical plant in Lagos instead of Kano. It was a practical, profit-motivated decision and not out of love for the Southwest. There is ample soft power in the Southwest. The north-central portion of Nigeria grew a lot of food that middlemen brought to the south. The core north provided onions and tomatoes, as well as cows, sheep, and goats. Some food is being produced in the south, but the value is always discounted when the Yoruba speak among themselves. Gari, the real staple food in southern Nigeria before rice, is made from cassava tubers, largely grown in the south and middle belt of Nigeria. Yams and other tubers are grown in the south. There are plantations all over the place, with a small production of beans, palm oil, and fruits and vegetables, including tomatoes, were grown before the huge investments in river basin authorities all over the country. The northwest portion of Nigeria did very well by realizing a tomato and onion revolution. Protein was largely livestock, goats, and cows from the north, or better put, in transit through northern Nigeria for Chad and Niger Republic. It is a myth that Nigeria produces a lot of cattle, goats, and sheep. Sure, northern Nigeria produces some, but a large portion is imported from Niger Republic and Chad. The recent week-long food blockage that the food transporting middlemen from the north of Nigeria clamped on the southern part proved so many things. Inadvertently, they cook as middlemen who regularly drive cows, goats, and rams to sell in the south showed to the south that the south can survive without so-called food from the north. Equally, it showed that the onion and tomato growers of these perishable products in the north, as well as tubers and grains producers in the middle belt, do not have identity of interest with middlemen cattle sellers. It is normally said that the consumer is king. This truism was an upmost lesson that can be derived from the 1 week blockage. Nobody begged the middlemen except one or two jokers who were searching for national relevance, who claimed they prevented a civil war. Videos and pictures of piles of tomatoes and onions rotten away in just 1 week ruined many farmers. It was too unfortunate that few greedy individuals could take a very irrational, thoughtless decision to blockade compatriots. Attempts to divert food products to sell in neighboring countries failed woefully. None of those countries, or even a number of them put together, has the purchasing power of Lagos alone. Of course, reduced availability of farm produces resulted in higher prices that were willingly absorbed by consumers. In fact, the readiness of Lagosians to purchase onions and tomatoes from the north should not always be taken for granted. More organically grown onions and tomatoes can be easily increased, and this should be done by individuals returning to their farms with self-help defense if necessary. I must hasten to note that self-defense is not how to run a country, but with the resistance on state police and the crippling of Hamateco by the federal government and state governments, self-help is becoming welcomed, even though we must accept it as a route to warlordism that is best avoided if there are alternatives. Unfortunately, we are moving in the direction of Somalia. All stakeholders are members of the Amalgamated Union of Food and Cattle Distributors of Nigeria in our nationwide strike are glad we achieved what we wanted to achieve since Kogi State Governor Yahya Bello begged us to, on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, we agreed to call off the nationwide strike today, declared the President Muhammad Buhari in calling the blockade to a close. In the aftermath of the blockade, people in the South must begin to look inwards. The nature of the interdependencies should be examined in the light of the intentions behind the blockade. Consumption patterns. Demands could be tamed to explore substitutes and options available around sustenance farming for individual families should be embraced more. Finally, integrated ranching should be built up. The southern governors can use some of the percentages of the revenue to beef up on alternative protein production of arrangements. Ogun and Lagos are foremost in the production of poultry products in Nigeria. This can easily be doubled by redirecting many unemployed youths into poultry production. In a more civilized and well thought out manner, characteristics of the Yoruba people, the South could find a way around these issues. Nutritional research, awareness, and enlightenment can be used to draw attention to viable and more nourishing sources of proteins. Chicken broilers can be all over the place in just 3 months. With, with the fertility rate of pigs, pork that is hygienically grown can be on the tables of those who want it in roughly 6 months. The successful Ijebu Poverty Reduction Initiative, which has been on for some 20 years, can be easily doubled, if not tripled, at its current site if capital support is extended by Ijebu people without waiting for the government. This can be duplicated in many southern states. The old Western region ranches, created by Awolowo's government at Ibadan, Shaki, Ikun, Agege, Ikare, Akunu, Okiako, Ikorodu, and Imeko are mostly in ruins today. The same way the Obudu ranch lies in waste after being abandoned for many years. These old western major ranches used to be stocked with cattle imported from Mali and Argentina to form a crossbreed that was okay in the humid environment. These ranches were built with good facilities, including dams. In Oyo State, about 9 ranches in different parts have been abandoned with full facilities for farm settlement, segments for animal husbandry, fishery, poultry, and piggery, and the part for growing fodders and crops. Over 16,000 acres of land dedicated to cattle ranching in Oyo State, 5,000 acres for Ikare George Dam, another 5,000 for Ibarakma Ranch, are all in ruins. They can be easily revived. Ogun State is no different. In Imeko sits a ranch of 4,000 acres abandoned. Same with Okeako in Ikiti, with about 12,000 acres lying in ruins. Recently, the governors of Oyo and Ogun States announced intentions to revive these ranches. Individuals should step forward with proposals to have our legacies revived. The respective state governments should be visionary and reasonable enough with these individual investors. Meanwhile, Leopold Pius pointed out, in Nigeria, based on sizes varying from small to giant, the prices of cattle range from 60,000 to 450,000 naira. The South has a chance to renegotiate prices by importing beef in the frozen state or on the hoof before the ranches become operational in 2-3 years. Botswana and South Africa are alternate sources of supplies. Certainly, the cook has inadvertently shown the fox it lacks the power the fox had hitherto attributed to it. Need I say more? The fox and the cook in contemporary Nigeria. This is for the Southwest, for the governors to take on board. The facilities are there already. Let us revamp them. Let us go back to the roots and work with it. That is all. That is all we need to do. The foundation has been laid already. So, this was indeed a good find and read for me. I hope it's for you too or your hand. Until I come your way again. Bye.